You sent the text 3 hours ago. It was a simple message, nothing heavy, nothing urgent. But you can see they've read it, and they haven't replied. And now your mind is spiraling. They're mad at you. They're ignoring you on purpose. You said something wrong. They don't want to talk to you anymore. 3 hours of silence, and you've already written an entire story about what it means. A story where their silence is a verdict, guilty. You've been judged, found wanting, and sentenced to anxiety. All because someone didn't text you back immediately. Some people spend their entire lives filling every silence with catastrophic meaning, turning every delayed response into evidence of rejection. But others, they've learned that silence is just silence, that not every pause is a punishment. So here's what I want to understand. Why does your mind turn silence into a verdict? And what does it take to stop convicting yourself based on other people's absence? This is the psychology of ambiguous communication, and understanding it might save you from drowning in anxiety every time someone doesn't immediately respond. To understand why silence triggers such intense reactions, we need to understand that your brain absolutely hates ambiguity. Uncertainty is perceived as a threat. When you don't know what's happening, your brain can't plan, can't prepare, can't protect you. So when faced with ambiguous information, like someone's silence, your brain does something predictable. It fills in the blanks. It creates a story to explain the uncertainty. And because your brain is wired to prioritize threat detection, it usually creates the worst possible story. This is called negative interpretation bias. When information is ambiguous, anxious brains default to negative explanations. They didn't text back because they're angry. They're quiet because they're disappointed. They're distant because they don't care anymore. Your brain isn't doing this to torture you. It's doing it because, evolutionarily, assuming the worst kept your ancestors alive. Better to assume the rustling bush is a predator than to assume it's nothing and get eaten. But here's the problem. Social silence isn't a predator. It's usually just nothing. They're busy. They forgot. They're processing. They'll respond later. The silence doesn't mean anything except that they haven't responded yet. But your brain can't tolerate that uncertainty. It needs meaning. So it manufactures meaning, almost always negative, and suddenly you're experiencing emotional pain over a story you created. Think about what happens physiologically when you interpret silence as rejection. Your nervous system activates. Your attachment system, which monitors your important relationships for signs of security or threat, goes into alarm mode. Your body doesn't distinguish between "they haven't texted back" and "they're abandoning me." The anxiety you feel is real. The threat your body is responding to? Completely imagined. You're making assumptions based on incomplete information and calling those assumptions facts. And then you're reacting emotionally to your assumptions as if they're reality. You're essentially having a relationship with the story you're telling yourself about the other person, not with the actual person. Here's where things get painful. If you grew up in an environment where silence was dangerous, where a parent's withdrawal meant punishment, where the silent treatment was used as control, your nervous system learned that silence equals threat. That when people go quiet, something bad is coming. So as an adult, even benign silence triggers that old programming. You're not overreacting to the current situation. You're reacting to every time silence preceded pain in your past. Now you might be thinking, but sometimes silence does mean something negative. And yes, sometimes it does. Sometimes people are upset. Sometimes distance is intentional. But here's the crucial distinction. You can't know which it is from silence alone. Silence is ambiguous, and treating ambiguous information as if it's a confirmed negative is what creates unnecessary suffering. You're convicting yourself based on evidence that doesn't exist yet. Here's my observation. Technology has made this exponentially worse. We have read receipts. We can see when someone was last online. We know they saw our message and chose not to respond. We have data that creates the illusion of certainty, while actually just giving us more ambiguity to catastrophize about. Before smartphones, you sent a letter and waited weeks. Now you send a text and panic after 3 hours because you know they read it. But let's talk about people who've learned to tolerate ambiguous silence, who don't immediately interpret lack of response as rejection. They haven't eliminated all anxiety. They've just learned to recognize their interpretations as interpretations, not facts. They've developed what psychologists call tolerance for uncertainty. The first step is catching yourself in the act of mind reading. When you notice you're creating a story about what someone's silence means, you pause and acknowledge. I'm making an assumption right now. I actually don't know what this silence means. That simple acknowledgement creates space between stimulus and interpretation. The silence is just silence until you have actual information. One powerful technique is generating alternative explanations. Your brain defaulted to, "They're mad at me." Okay, what are 5 other possible explanations? They're in a meeting. Their phone died. They're driving. They're overwhelmed and will respond later. They didn't see it as requiring an immediate response. You're not trying to convince yourself of the positive explanation. You're just reminding yourself that multiple explanations exist, and you don't know which one is true yet. There's also something crucial about sitting with the discomfort of not knowing. This is where most people spiral. The uncertainty is so uncomfortable that they'll accept any explanation, even a painful one, just to resolve the ambiguity. But learning to say, "I don't know what this means, and that's okay," is a skill. It's tolerance for uncertainty, and it's essential if you don't want to spend your life torturing yourself with imagined rejections. Breaking free from turning silence into verdicts requires examining your core beliefs about relationships. Do you believe that if people care about you, they'll respond immediately? Do you believe that silence equals anger? Do you believe that you need constant reassurance to know where you stand? These beliefs, often formed early, drive your interpretations. And beliefs can be questioned. In a world of instant communication where we expect immediate responses, learning to tolerate silence without filling it with catastrophic meaning is revolutionary. It's refusing to convict yourself based on incomplete evidence. It's recognizing that other people's response times aren't verdicts on your worth. So if you've ever spiraled because someone didn't text back, if you've created entire narratives about what silence means, if you felt your stomach drop when you see "read" but no reply, know this. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing what anxious brains do. It's trying to resolve uncertainty by creating explanations. But those explanations aren't truth. They're just stories, and you can learn to hold them lightly, to wait for actual information before believing the verdict your mind wants to deliver. That's not denial. That's wisdom.